Hi, this is Tish Aitken, and it is November 2nd, 2021, and I'm here to give a weekly update of all that's going on energetically. We are in Scorpio season, and I'm sure many of you, I know many of you have already reached out to say, are feeling the intensity, which is all over the map. And there are a few reasons. We are now in eclipse season. I know some say the eclipse season begins with the new moon or the full moon that precedes the eclipses. My experience is I start to feel it and my clients start to feel it even before that. I think about a month before the eclipses. And we will have a partial lunar eclipse on November 19th in Taurus at 27 degrees and 14 minutes of Taurus. And we will have a total solar eclipse in Sagittarius on December 4th at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. So that's right around the corner. Mars, which rules Scorpio in ancient astrology, just entered Scorpio on October 30th, where it will be until December 13th. Mars in Scorpio is fierce. It is in its dignity because it rules Scorpio in ancient astrology, but it is, you do not want to piss off somebody with Mars in Scorpio. And I will give a personal example, and I love him dearly. He's gone now, and I loved him dearly. My dad was a Scorpio sun. He was a Scorpio with Mars in Scorpio, and he had Saturn as well, I believe. He had a lot of Capricorn and Aquarius, but definitely was a Scorpio. And first thing you would see really was that he was a Scorpio. And so, you know, very funny Scotsman, very funny guy. But if you made him mad, you didn't want to make him mad. Let's just put it that way. And I can recall one time when I was 15 years old, hanging out with one of my best friends, actually, one of my really good friends who also is a Scorpio. And we were having this great time hanging out on the East River, talking, and we were 15, just talking about how we were going to be friends for life or some kind of, thing that teenagers do. And actually we are still friends, so we were right about that. But having a nice talk and a great afternoon, and I turn around because I lived near the park. I grew up in Manhattan, and I turned to go to my apartment, and my father was standing by my apartment building. And if you know New York City at all, the east side, the blocks aren't as big as the west side. They're not as wide and long, but still, one's voice doesn't carry from one avenue to the other. And I, came from East End Avenue. I was turning to go to my apartment, and I was walking up the street, and my father was the opposite side. Basically, he was on York Avenue, and I was coming from East End Avenue. And he screamed my name, and he was mad at me, and rightfully. I did something really wrong. I did. And every window shook. His voice poured through every crevice of every building and window and door on that block. And in my mind's eye, the block turned red. and everybody knew I was in trouble. Everybody probably across the country knew I was in trouble as far as I felt. And he didn't talk to me for a month after that. So that's how angry he was. And I know that makes him sound like he was a difficult parent. He actually was a great parent. But I did something wrong, and he let me have it. And boy, he let me have it. And it really wasn't through, it was more through the fact that then he went silent. And that's a Scorpio thing too. They can cut you off, but I will never forget that. So the energy right now, you may have that kind of feeling of people, of just this really fiery energy of maybe you're being my dad shouting down the street, making all the windows rattle, or you're on the receiving end, and none of us wants to be in either place. And this morning, Pluto and Mercury squared Pluto at 5:39 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and that can be very combative energy. Pluto rules Scorpio in modern astrology, and Mercury just cleared its shadow. It's been in the sign of Libra since August 30th, and it's going to exit on November 5th. And so we've had Mercury in Libra for quite some time, reassessing our partnerships and relationships and what we value, how we can connect with others. And now we're in real Scorpio season, and we're in eclipse season. We feel the energy a month before. And I know, traditionally most feel, which I agree with too, we have a new moon on November 4th, and then 2 weeks later we have a partial lunar eclipse, and eclipses always come in pairs. So we then have a total solar eclipse on December 4th in Sagittarius. So we have a new moon this week on November 4th, and then the partial lunar eclipse is on November 19th, and then the final eclipse in the Sagittarius-Gemini axis is on December 4th. And so eclipses bring things to light. They are that's also an energy. It's a pressured time, a lot happening in a very short period of time. It's just a lot. It's very intense. A lot of life changes can happen very quickly too. You can hear out of the blue somebody decided to move out of town, or somebody breaks up. Somebody starts a new job. Maybe they get an offer out of the blue. Sometimes it's something we've known about for quite a while, and it just is like just burst, it finally comes to light, and or we let it go. Finally, it's something that we haven't dealt with, and it just explodes. So that's the energy too. But Mars in Scorpio is really fiery, and the new moon this week is going to also be really intense. The new moon is always a time for setting intentions, and it's a time of new beginnings. And the new moon will be on November 4th at 5:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 12 degrees and 40 minutes of the fixed water sign of Scorpio. More emotional intensity. Purging what's keeping you from your new beginnings. We are all in a very sad time, and I know I say that, and I know some don't want to say that in their videos, but we are. I'm not gonna. I am sad. I know all of you are sad in different ways, and we want new beginnings. We want to plant new seeds. We want to reinvent ourselves. But the fact is, this new moon is also really intense, because soon after the new moon occurs, the sun opposes Uranus at 7:58 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Uranus is only 7 minutes off from this new moon, which is at 12 degrees of Scorpio. I cast the chart for Washington, D.C., and the new moon chart has Taurus ascendant. Therefore, Venus is the ruler of Scorpio. Venus will be at the final degree of Sagittarius, and at the galactic center, which is the center of the Milky Way, and gives us a lot of psychic downloads and information, and it's just about to change signs, which it will do on November 5th. Venus is going to enter the world point and enter the cardinal earth sign of Capricorn at 6:44 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. It's going to retrograde on December 19th at 26 degrees and 29 minutes of Capricorn. That's where Pluto retrograded in April of this year, and that's tracing where Saturn was on and off in March through November of 2020. And Venus retrograde is a whole other story that I'll get into. But with this said, we know Venus is changing signs. Mercury is not yet in Scorpio. In the new moon chart, the sun and moon obviously are conjunct. Mars is in Scorpio. It will be at approximately 3 degrees of Scorpio, but it is conjunct Mercury out of sign. So that's fiery energy already, because Mercury is the planet of communication, and it's conjunct Mars, which could involve intense communication. And that stellium of planets falls in the house of Partners. And there's a lot of fixed energy, which is tenacious and stubborn. So we've got the sun and moon in Scorpio and Mars in Scorpio. The new moon squares Saturn, which is in the fixed air sign of Aquarius. Mars squares Saturn at a closer degree. They're only within 3 degrees of one another, and Mars will make an exact square to Saturn on November 10th. That's heavy energy. That can feel very frustrating. And on that same day, Mercury will then be in the sign of Scorpio, and Mercury is going to square Saturn. So even more roadblocks. That's a way of looking at it. But good for digging in to get work done that you need to do. Mars in Scorpio is fearless. I referenced my Scorpio father before. I'm going to give another example of my dad in this story. So in the 70s in New York, it wasn't a national recession, it wasn't a global recession, but New York got hit really hard, and about 1 million people fled New York, and businesses were going out of business, and it was just a really, really tough time. And my father at the time was working at a brokerage firm that went out of business, and he was out of work, I think, for a few years, really. I don't know. But I know that the one job he had was on Sunday mornings. He would deliver a local newspaper called Our Town. And he would go to Port Authority at 4:30 in the morning on Sunday mornings. And that was when Times Square was really Times Square. And my father was like 6 feet and about 145 pounds at the time. He was not a big, he was tall. He was very lanky, but he was not a built guy, let's say. So, but he had, I remember Hemingway once described Zelda Fitzgerald as saying that she had eyes like a hawk. She really looked through you, and she was intense. I could say the same of my father. He had eyes like a hawk. He would see through you, and he did. And he also was fearless. He also did what he had to do. I mean, it must have been terrifying going to Port Authority with the crime and all of that at that time, and the desperation that everybody was feeling in New York City at that time, because that wasn't global, it wasn't national. But now each of us is in a time where many of us will have to do things like that. We may have to take some risks. We might have to we are dealing with daunting circumstances, and we are in a worse time than that even. But you want to tap into the courage. You got to do what you got to do. And I always respect that my dad was able to do that. And that was that Mars and Scorpio too, that he was very courageous to go do that. And, nobody wants to do that job at 4:30 in the morning. But, I think that we want to tap into courage. We want to not, explode in anger. We don't want our voice to pour down an entire block, but we want to have our voice be heard, and we want to hear others. And I think that's important. And this new moon is going to have an aspect of endings, because definitely, because when Sun opposite Uranus, that could be out of the blue endings. That could be wake-up calls for all of us. That could, that could also bring in new beginnings. Although an opposition is I versus thou, and generally entails an ending and brings an ending. I've also seen big beginnings occur with oppositions, and I've seen major endings occur with conjunctions, which means the planet is conjunct another planet. So I think that you want to use the illumination accessible, because Jupiter and Saturn are still in Aquarius. Jupiter will be exiting Aquarius on December 29th, and Aquarius is a sign of the future, among other things. It's a sign of technology. It's a sign of community, but it's also about seeking enlightenment and about raising the collective vibe, and you really want to tap into that. Use the Mars energy to fight for helping yourself and helping others. Be fearless in a time where we need to have courage, and do something definitely to celebrate this new moon. But know that this is going to be a fiery week, and realistically a fiery month and a half, because we're in eclipse season, and we're in Scorpio season. The lunar eclipse on November 19th is going to be at 27 degrees and 14 minutes of the fixed Earth sign of Taurus. And at that time, the sun will still be obviously in Scorpio. It's going to be in opposition. And Mars will still definitely be in Scorpio. Mercury will have changed signs at that time. But to dig in deeply of what you need to, towards what you need to heal. We are all in mourning. We really are, and we are all rebirthing ourselves too. We don't have a choice. We have to keep going on for ourselves and for each other. And on the new moon, due to the law of abundance, Scorpio rules money, it rules intimacy, it rules healing the wounds. Look at the example, the higher form of Scorpio, the phoenix rising above the ashes. Do something to really celebrate this new moon. And even with the sun opposite Uranus, maybe some way of tapping into something, I don't know, innovative or creative. That can be very creative energy. I am going to see my favorite band of all time that I never got to see in real life. I'm going to see The Doors. They're doing just one night that they're showing live at the Hollywood Bowl on November 4th. And I'm going to see it in a movie theater, and I'm really excited. And so that will be my new moon intention and celebration. And we're going to have to stick through all of this and get through this. And this is the end.